Hey there! Welcome to a fresh batch of updates for your Pentest-Tools.com toolkit. Today we feast on new detections and findings from the Network Vulnerability Scanner, a bunch of new custom exploits our team developed for critical CVEs, updates to our password auditor, which more and more of our customers are using, improvements to our much-loved website vulnerability scanner, and an update to our reports compatibility, which will make it much easier to get your team's best work in the one asset that most reflects your work and expertise. So let's quickly unpack these. The latest updates to our Network Vulnerability Scanner now let you detect CVE 2023 48788, which has a CVSS score of 9.8. The SQL injection in Fortinet FortiClient EMS, it's a vulnerability which a remote attacker can use to run SQL commands on the vulnerable target and fully compromise the database that the FortiClient EMS uses. You can also get individual findings for publicly exposed PostgreSQL, MongoDB, OracleDB, and Redis services. You can also get an informational finding when a port redirects to another port, which leads to skipping the vulnerability checks for that target. And one last update for the Network Vulnerability Scanner is that you can see the steps to replicate a finding in a dedicated section called How to Reproduce, to make it even easier for you to browse through details. After these month's updates, Sniper Auto Exploiter, our most powerful exploitation tool, can gain unauthenticated remote code execution on the target system and extract multiple artifacts as evidence for the following CVEs. CVE 2024-23-108 with a CVSS score of 9.8 is a remote code execution vulnerability in Fortinet FortiSIEM. This exploit helps you validate that a remote, unauthenticated attacker can leverage this vulnerability to fully compromise the server and steal confidential information, install ransomware, or pivot to the internal network. This CVE is an information disclosure vulnerability in Checkpoint's CloudGuard network security. This arbitrary file read through a path traversal vulnerability can give an unauthenticated attacker remote access to any file on the vulnerable target's file system. The cause for this CVE is an incorrect handling of the user parameter, which doesn't correctly sanitize user-controlled input. An attacker can use a special character to achieve remote code execution on the target as the user that is actually running the web server process. Our team has detected this vulnerability by sending a crafted HTTP request to the server and reading the output from the response for the ID command. If you're using our password auditor to test for weak credentials, we've improved the experience of using it. It's now easier to understand why the brute force attack finishes much earlier than you expected. We generate a screenshot when the password auditor finds weak credentials using Basic Authorization. Also, if a port redirects to another port, the brute force on that port is skipped, and now you'll get an informational finding. We're also generating a screenshot when the brute force attack exceeds current capabilities, including account lockout detection, website access blocked during the brute force, CAPTCHA found, login form could not be found, and third-party authentication or two-step authentication detected. And finally, to reduce false positives, we've added new checks when weak credentials are found. Now onto the updates for our much-loved website vulnerability scanner. We've improved the capabilities for our server-side template injection detector by adding payloads that work in code context. And we've finished the second part of our JWT detector by adding payloads that work in code context. That means our website vulnerability scanner can now detect weak HMAC secrets and algorithm confusion. Until now, our DuckX reports were very dependent on Microsoft Word, so we spent a lot of time and effort to change this. And we have good news. DuckX files are now compatible with Google Docs. If you're already using Google Docs in your day-to-day work, you can now speed up your reporting review process by working together with your team. Plus, other editors can benefit from this update as well. How do you zero in on the assets really worth your hacking energy and focus? the awesome Nahum Tech breaks down how he combs through hundreds of domains that branch out into even more subdomains to find targets with the highest potential of having a bounty-worthy vulnerability. Check out his latest video, which we had the pleasure of sponsoring. We've added a link in the description below. Thanks so much for spending this time with me, and I can't wait to share with you next month's update. So, see you soon.